back to Ollie Talks Airsoft. In today's video we're going to be talking about how to make a high-speed MWS build just like this. So the video I posted a couple of weeks ago was all about how to make a heavy recoil setup. Obviously that is a very low rate of fire. With this I've managed to increase the rate of fire, and we can push a system like this from roughly around 13 BBs a second up to about 23 to 25 BBs a second. That's going from like 800 rounds a minute up to 1500, which is pretty insane, and we're still getting MWS type performance out of the gun as well. So if you want to learn how to do this, then stick around to the end of this video. I'm going to try and break it up into a few different sections, but ultimately there are 9 things that you're going to need to do. You've got 3 things with regard to the buffer tube, you've got 3 things with regard to the bolt, and you've got 3 things with regard to the magazine that you use. Let's get into the bolt weights and let's start doing a little bit of testing. Let's weigh some different parts and find our lightest combination. So we've got stock here, so that's 189 grams. Model Works Company, that comes in at 179, a little bit lighter. Then got a Rogue Works here, which you can't get anymore. That comes out 91 grams. The lightest of the bunch here, 75 grams. This is an EMG F1 with a Guns Modify complete nozzle in here. You'll also notice that actually with this one, the nozzle return is really snappy. This is one of the other things that you're going to need if you're going to have a very high speed setup. So this one again, I think this is a stock nozzle, but it's got an upgraded spring. This one, I didn't actually like the Volante spring system that they used. I thought it was too open, so I've just used a Guns Modify in there. This one is stock, so you can see the slower nozzle return. This will not lead to a high-speed setup very well. You want that nozzle to retract as fast as possible. This one seems to basically have the fastest retracting nozzle on it, the Guns Modify complete set in an F1. So I have had a couple of issues with these pins walking out, but I've basically just glued them back in, and that's not really caused too many problems ever since I did that. So you can see the bolt roller on the back is kind of smashed up here as well, which is a bit of a shame. But this is our lightest setup with the fastest retracting nozzle, so this is going to give us the best chance possible at getting a good high-speed setup. 74 plus 75 grams, not too bad. Now let's look at some of the end pieces. So we've got the HOW coming in at like 83 grams, the WeTech coming in at like 53 grams, a stock end piece from TM coming in at 29 grams. Then we've got this one here, which is actually made by OMG or Dytac, and it's part of their law folder system. This one only comes in at 19 grams, so this is actually the lightest one that I've got. So if we combine these 2 parts together, we're currently at 94 grams. Wow. We do need a screw to go in there. We're looking at under 100 grams for our bolt setup here. Let's just compare that to what you get in the stock Tokyo Marui. So this is the stock bolt, and this is the stock end piece, and 223 grams. So we've shaved more than half the weight off that whole bolt system. Wow. That's impressive. I'm looking forward to seeing how this translates. So next up, what we want to have a look at is some of the buffer systems that people are using. So again, we've got the Angry gun here. So this is a super heavyweight buffer. Now this is coming in at what, 177 grams, way too heavy for what we want. We've then got 2 buffers which basically look identical. However, this one has all of the weights in. So we're coming in at 84 grams. This one has every single weight taken out of it, so we're only coming in at 28 grams. Wow, that's light. That's really light. Okay, let's compare that just to the completely bone stock with the springs and everything TM. That comes in at 24 grams. This is actually our lightest buffer, but what we're going to also compare here is the length of the 2 different buffers. You can see that actually the real steel buffer is actually quite a bit shorter. Now, if we're going to be short stroking the system in order to get the highest possible rate of fire, then let's see what difference having either a shorter buffer or having a sprung but slightly longer buffer. Let's see what kind of difference that makes, because that's also going to have an impact. Stock bolt, let's get that on there. So we've got 246 grams that's going to be moving, and our lightweight setup is going to be 123. That's exactly half the weight. So we've drilled half the weight out of this system. Let's see what happens with the actual numbers. First off, we're going to see if the different magazines make any difference. We've got a stock bolt and a stock setup completely in here. GM mag. Okay, so we've got 13.92 rounds per second. That's the gun's modify on a stock setup. Right, let's check a stock Tokyo Marui mag. 13.48. So ever so slightly quicker. Let's just switch back and just double check that. And that was 13.72. Obviously we are shooting some full auto here, so yeah, a little bit faster with the PMAG. So that's our first point. Now let's have a look at swapping the bolt for the lightweight. Right, so we've now got our lightest possible setup in here. Okay, that certainly feels pretty fast. Right, let's see what it reads. Okay, so we're now at 16.29. That's okay. Let's see what the stock mag would give us. I would expect it to be a little bit less, maybe 15.9, I'm going to guess. $15.75. With this, at the moment, we still have a bolt lock feature. Now, if you're willing to sacrifice your bolt lock, then you can get way faster performance. So let's see how much we can short stroke this and still get our bolt lock to work with a standard mag. Okay, so we've got our lightweight setup here. There's nothing in this mag. We're just going to test it if the bolt lock works. And it does. Right, now let's try short stroking it until the bolt lock doesn't work anymore. In order to short stroke, what you're going to need to do is you're either going to need some buffers like this, or they just happen to be the same size as a UK 10p, so I often use these instead of these. Let's drop a couple of these in and let's see how we do. So, buffer and spring out. Let's drop in just the one. So put one extra buffer in there. And that is enough to stop our bolt lock feature from working. Basically, the faster the bolt moves, the less time it has to catch at the rear of travel. So yeah, with a full mag, we're not getting any bolt lock feature there. Okay, so we've now short stroked it to the point we're not getting a bolt lock. Let's see what that has done to our rounds per second. Okay, so now we've short stroked it a little bit. We are up to 18.67 rounds per second. So quite a jump up from the 14 that we started off with. Let's see what kind of performance we get off a standard Tokyo Marui mag. Maybe we're looking at 18. Oh, 17.61. We're now going to drop in another buffer here. So it's definitely really short stroke now. We know that we're not going to be getting a reliable bolt lock, or in fact probably a bolt lock at all. No, I can still manually engage it. Let's see what adding this extra buffer has now done. We are now at 20.91 rounds per second. So we're now up at like your kind of SMG levels of of performance here. This is pretty cool. Let's see what you get with a stock mag. The fact that it's still feeding all of the BBs means that maybe we can do this a little bit more. That was a 19.81. Let's do some more short stroking and let's see how far we can really push this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get 4 10Ps in here and let's just drop them straight into the buffer tube. So I think we're now probably at the point where I won't be able to manually engage the bolt lock feature at all. But hopefully we're still going to be able to feed every single round through the gun. So yeah, even if I pull it, all of the so the little spring on the back of the buffer like this, that fully compresses and I still cannot engage the bolt lock. So we have completely disabled the bolt lock, but we have gone here for just the maximum cyclic rate that we can possibly get. So let's flick onto full auto and let's see what we get off this. I didn't get a reading there, but it was 305 FPS. Okay, so we're now at 20.77 rounds per second. Now I must say I think this mag is probably cooling down quite a bit, and if I just grab my thermometer, we're currently at 16 degrees. We're now going for 4 more 10Ps. Again, we've got the stock set up in here. Okay, oh, that is really short stroked. So it's going to be a question mark as to whether this is actually even going to feed. So can't lock it back. Let's see if the gun actually functions first. Okay. No. So we're now short stroked to the point that it's not actually capable of feeding the BBs. Now, you may be able to get this functioning by having a much stronger nozzle return spring. If it's much stronger, then what's going to happen is instead of that nozzle staying like that inside the chamber, you want it, you see there, it's all the way back, and yeah, it's so we've reached the point of no return for this particular one. Let's see now, because we're now short stroked to the point that this buffer doesn't work. Now let's see what happens when we use this lightweight buffer here. Some of you may have noticed what I just did there with the spring. If you didn't, go back and have a look. Okay, so now look, we've got that nozzle return, but we've got hard backstop. We don't have this sprung part anymore. So let's see what's going to happen. Okay, we're chambering around. Okay, so it's still not actually chambering. Okay, so we're going to take a couple of 10Ps out, because if the gun isn't functioning, that's no point. Okay, right, let's see if the gun functions. Okay, so we are feeding BBs. Let's see what the full auto is. Okay, so it's stuttered there. That means that the nozzle isn't retracting all of the way. Let's see if using a slightly less powerful mag is going to make any difference there. Okay, so that one functioned, but it was only at 18.75. So actually stepping down a little bit there. The next thing for us to do, I think, is this real steel buffer doesn't really seem to be doing too well here. Let's go back to the original Tokyo Marui and see if we can get more reliable performance or faster performance with this. Okay, right, so let's see what we're going to get. Okay, so we're not actually getting feeding on semi-auto here, so let's try with stock TM mag. That felt weird. There you go. Okay, so we're having issues here. So I think we've definitely reached the limit of short stroking. Let's take out all the buffers and let's see how much we've got in there. We have about 6 10Ps. And bear in mind, everyone's going to be different. Some people unscrew their buffer tuber turn to allow the bolt lock function to work. I've actually got 1 thin and 2 slightly fatter of these SP Systems buffers. So actually, with regard to how much I'm short stroking the system, that's how much, but bear in mind we're having issues. So let's just take one of these 10Ps off and let's see if we can get this thing working. Drop one of them. More on that. So obviously, you know, for you guys, this is going to be trial and error. You just got to try these things out, see how they do. Okay, let's try a standard mag. Again, problem there. Just not working correctly. Make sure there's no BBs trapped. There aren't. Okay, so I would say this is unreliable at the moment. It's not firing on every shot, so that just won't do. Yeah, and it's still not picking up all the BBs there, so moving a little bit too fast, nozzle staying stuck forwards. Okay, so you know what? First time there when I put 4 10Ps in, I think I was on to the winner. Right, let's take the rest of this out. And we're going to leave it with that 4 10Ps and all of the buffers. So I believe I now have my MWS tuned here for the highest rate of fire that I can possibly get. And still having reliability. So let's see if I'm right. That is feeding every BB. That is exactly what I want. And let's see what our final round per second count is. Okay, so our final round per second count is 21. That's blazing fast. That is absolutely blistering fast. Obviously, you do sacrifice your bolt lock feature, but my goodness, it's fun. And if you've got a drum mag, you're in for a great time. So obviously, rather than showing you guys the length of how much I've buffered this out, actually the most useful thing for me to show you is where the bolt tends to sit actually in the receiver. So this is where your nozzle and your bolt will be sat, and because we're using the original stock TM, because that was giving us the best results, then yeah, this is how it should look. Obviously, you're not going to have your bolt lock feature at all with this, but you are going to have that SMG style rate of fire, and actually that's really cool. So just as one last demo, I will just swap this buffer. So we've now got our optimum arrangement in here. I don't think I've checked this one yet. So we're on 21.3 rounds per second there. Let's see what we're going to get this time. So we're quite near the back of travel there, but we're okay still. 17.08. So it's not just about the weight of the buffer. Actually, this spring here does seem to make a really big difference. Let's quickly swap this out and see. Now that we've short stroked the system, let's run a stock MWS mag, and let's see what you could just do at home with your standard TM MWS. Let's see what you can get out of it, because I think that's interesting. Okay, and that comes in at 17.49 rounds per second. So actually, bear in mind that it started on about 14.5. If you short stroke your system and you're willing to give up on that bolt lock feature, you can get an extra 3 rounds per second out of your MWS. If you're willing to go down the route of getting yourself a lightweight bolt, you can add another 4 rounds per second to that. Pretty impressive. Mag is like 15-14 degrees. One last ditch effort. I think we can squeeze a little bit more out of this reliably, switching up to Vorsk V12 gas. I'm really hoping to get 22 rounds a second out of this. Let's see how well I do. Okay, we're loaded up with Vorsk V12 black gas. Let's see if we can get a better score. .2 rounds per second. Yeah. Let's just try that one more time. That was actually 22.42 rounds per second, and it's still at 289 FPS. 22.01, and are we out? Yep, we are out. So yeah, that is also feeding reliably as well. So 21.85 at 301 FPS, 24.8, 25.2, 25 degree mag. Right. So 22.11 at 305 FPS. That is a very respectable 23.46, and we're still coming in at 347 FPS. 24.2 at 287 FPS. That is very respectable. 25.51 rounds per second. Yeah, as you can see, if you short stroke it too much, then you are going to see some of these malfunctions coming into play. For me, the difference between malfunctions at some malfunctions and no malfunctions was about ½ centimetre, so about 5 mil. So we're talking relatively small amounts, but that is about a 10p, to be perfectly honest. 1 or 2 10p's is going to be the difference, and ultimately you're not really sacrificing too much with regard to your rate of fire. Let's get on with the next part, which is talking about the magazine. So things that I found is actually, like my last video, you'll have noticed that the Guns Modify PMag actually puts more gas in, through the system, and it actually has a better gas seal. What this leads to is ultimately better performance. When we're talking about recoil, you get slightly harder recoil. When we're talking about a rate of fire, it will actually slightly increase your rate of fire, but it's not the only thing that you can do. So the first thing you need to do with regard to magazines is pick one that's got a good gas seal, and if you don't have one with a good gas seal, you can buy Garda routers and you can buy high flow valves to put into the regular Tokyo Marui magazines that do actually improve the performance that you get out of them. Those particular mags will help you to get this higher rate of fire. Obviously, if you've got one of the 400 round drum mags, then have fun, it's going to be awesome. The next thing you want to do with the magazine is actually with regard to the gas that you put in it. Again, if you want these high rates of fire, you're going to have to be looking at black gas and red gas. So green gas is perfectly fine in this system, but it's not going to cut the mustard when you're looking for that really high rate of fire. We're talking above 22 BBs a second. So the third thing that you're going to need to think about is, it's kind of obvious, kind of not, but it's actually the temperature of your magazine. Now, if your mags are cold, obviously the gas pressure is lower. It kind of almost negates the fact that you put black gas into the system. However, if you've got something like a Guns Modify PMag, you put some black gas in it, and the magazine is relatively warm, we're talking 20 degrees C or just above, probably no more than 30, I think that is a bit too high probably. But if you're in the mid-20s, that magazine is absolutely going to pop off. If you've got a magazine that's maybe 15, 16 degrees, you will notice that you have a lower rate of fire, and you will see that come through on the FPS numbers as well. So they're the three things that you need to do with regard to your magazine. The three things that you need to do with regard to your bolt are actually, firstly, if you can afford it or if you have access, try and pick up a lightweight bolt. You'll notice the lightest one that I had was an EMG. It was an EMG F1 bolt, and as far as I'm aware, it's actually lighter than every other one on the market. Other people, you can see the numbers. If you've got one that's lighter, please let me know, because I'd be interested. But also, we're talking about the end cap that goes onto that bolt. So obviously, the stock one is like 29, 30 grams. The one that I was using was maybe 5 grams less than that. But actually, you can get a polymer end cap. Now, you are going to get increased wear with a polymer end cap, but it's not like you're not going to be taking the bolt out of your gun and having a little look at it every so often. So as part of your regular maintenance, I know that you guys are going to be doing that anyway. So I would say, if you want to use a polymer bolt end, yes, you're going to manage to get even lighter weight out of your bolt. And if you've got ultimately the same setup that I've got here, you should actually be able to increase the speed of that bolt and, in theory, increase your rate of fire. The last thing with regard to the bolt, and this is the part that every single person forgets about, it's actually using an enhanced nozzle return spring. Now, chances are, if you've had your MWS for a little while, you've probably already got one of those in there. I know DP do a great one, or you could do what I did and just get the Guns Modify Complete nozzle, and that has an upgraded spring in there as well. What it means is that with that shorter travel of the bolt, with a stronger spring, it's more likely to be able to retract that nozzle, which means that you're actually going to get loading of the next BB. This is crucially important. If you don't do this, it's not going to function properly. If you use the stock bolt, it actually has quite a weak nozzle return spring, and so I would suggest, you know, you're going to struggle to get those high rates of fire. Or what you'll really find is that actually when you buffer out your system, you just won't be able to use as many buffers, and you know, in order to get proper function on the gun. So upgrading your nozzle return spring will actually allow you to increase the amount of buffers that you put into your buffer tube, and that's really going to speed up the rate of fire that you get. The last thing that we looked at was obviously to do with the weight of the buffer that you're using, and actually in my testing I found even though a real steel buffer with all of the weights taking out, it's only a tiny little bit heavier than the stock Tokyo Marui MWS one. And even the fact that it's slightly shorter, which in theory would mean that you've got more room for short stroking, actually it really didn't translate to that. And the spring on the back of the stock Tokyo Marui buffer is really vital to getting that super high rate of fire, and I'd suggest anyone that's looking for a high rate of fire build, you're probably going to want to stick with that. Then moving back from that, we've actually got the spring, and as I've said, I was using the SP system spring, and I actually bought this as a kit, and it came in a cool tube like this, and it had 4 purple buffers, and actually that was pretty much the amount that I needed to use in order to short stroke my system to the point that it was still working effectively. Actually, one of the purple buffers is in one of my other buffer tubes, which is why I was using 10Ps. Yeah, having an upgraded spring, again, it's going to increase the force pushing that bolt back into battery, and each time it retracts, it's gonna go back in just a shade quicker. It's not going to make a huge difference, but actually the sum of all these parts put together is going to lead to just some absolutely stellar performance. The final thing, obviously, as we've talked about most of the time, and it is the most significant thing for increasing your rate of fire, it is buffering out your buffer tube. You may get a lightweight bolt and other things like that, and they all build up to a high-speed system, but it's buffering out the buffer tube, putting something down the end here, and making sure that actually the bolt travel is shortened, because that is where the real gains are to be had. So guys, I really hope that you've enjoyed this. I really hope that some of you out there are going to take the initiative and just throw caution to the wind and try a high-speed build. It is really, really fun. I'm thinking I may pick up one of the drum mags for the MWS. It's going to be really fun to have 400 rounds and no bolt stop, just run it as an LMG. That is just going to be the most fun. The last thing I want to say is thank you so much for spending your time with me. I'm sorry that it's taken me a couple of weeks to get this video out. Every evening I've been doing testing, trust me, there has been thousands of BBs fired. I've gone through about 4 cans of gas, all of my black gas, but I'm so happy with the results, and knowing how to do these little tricks to your system. This is what is so good about gas blowback rifles. You can just, you know, with very little experience, you can just dive in, muck around a little bit and get some awesome results out of it. You don't have to be a tech in order to do this. I'm no tech, but I love tinkering with the guns. I love figuring out cool, fun things to do, the high recoil setup, the high speed builds. What's next? Stay tuned. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you on the next video.